I'd like to first, hello, my name is Lee Cummings, the author of the Negro Question book series. And today I'd like to take maybe it's Father's Day in America, June 15th, 2025. And I'd like to throw my 2 cents in, as they say, about the Israeli attack on Iran to show you the mindset of the powers that be. You know, what we're looking at in the Middle East is a snapshot of a mindset whose time has come and gone, and it's white colonialism, aka white power. Uh, if you notice, Israel's how should we say it explanation for attacking the Iranians is they felt that the Iranians presented an existential threat to the land of Israel. And why? Let me tell you why. Because the Iranians had the audacity to try to harness nuclear power. Now, whether to use it to run their manufacturing or the manufacturing plants or the electrical grid or power grid for the nation, who knows? But it's a sovereign nation. It has the right to create and produce nuclear weapons if it chooses to. And it doesn't, it should not have to ask the UN, which is a body of nations, or a neighboring nation if it's okay. I'm going to show you something. I think there are over 53 nations in Africa. Not one of those nations possesses a nuclear weapon. Same thing holds true for South America and Central America and this entire region of the world. No nuclear weapons. There's a reason for this. None of the black nations possess nuclear weapons. None of the nations of color, whether they identify as being black, possess nuclear weapons, but they don't identify as being black. India and Pakistan they call themselves the brown-skinned people, brown-skinned. They possess nuclear weapons. There's only 7 nations on the planet that possess nuclear weapons. They're all Europe. 5 of them are European. I think it's Italy, France, Russia, China, North Korea, and Britain. And then the United States is mingled because I'm here, person of color, and all the other colored people that have come here that have transformed the planet, not the planet, but this country into a interracial nation. But check this out. Getting back to Israel's missile strike on Iran because they were the aggressor. Their excuse was these guys, they one step away from a nuclear weapon. Now, the Israelis have a doctrine called mowing the grass. Anytime they see a nation around them that they are psychologically at war with, uh, developing technologies, they go in and they destroy that technology, which is what they did with the nuclear site. Now, this is something I want you to focus on. Uh, the advent of white power. Where did it start? You know, this whole ideology of ruling the world. We're going to show you this. This page is from a dictionary that I published called the Negro Question Dictionary, and it's page 113. And I want you to listen to this. This is going to be a very short presentation. This was written by Professor Boyd Dawkins, and it was titled Our Earliest Ancestors, page 96 and 97. And it goes, in the year 449 AD, certain Englishmen came from North Germany, south of the Baltic Sea. And this is where the Anglo-Saxons come from, the whites that are in America. The whites that are in Western Europe, they're Anglo-Saxons. And you'll hear when the Russians get heated, they'll call them Anglo-Saxons, and Anglo-Saxons are called the Russian Slavs or Slavic people. It says, I'm gonna pick up where I'm gonna start off. In the year 449 AD, certain Englishmen came from North Germany, south of the Baltic Sea, and not from the Caucasus Mountains, and they pushed the Black Britons westward into Wales and Westmoreland. What else? Let me see. I'm gonna go up here and read the rest of it. Devon, Scotland, Cumberland, Cornwall. So, and this is not even part of the presentation, but before the white barbarians got to Europe, the blacks were already in England. They were in England, Scotland, Wales. They were Welsh, and then they were pushed down to Ireland. But I want you to hear this. I'm gonna pick it up where it says Hadrian Caesar. Hadrian Caesar built a wall in Britain in the year 122 AD to keep the barbarians out. What barbarians? The Anglo-Saxons. What Anglo-Saxons? If you was watching TV the other day when the German chancellor showed up, he came and brought a birth certificate of Donald Trump's grandfather, the Anglo-Saxons. These are the people that are in power in the world today. But watch this. The wall kept the barbarians out of Rome and Britain for 327 years. When the Anglo-Saxons arrived in England, the Black Britons had an alphabet that consisted of ancient Aramaic Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. But that's a huge point. But the secondary to what I want to show you, there's a dictionary that was written by Samuel Johnson it was published in 1788. It's called the Dictionary of the English Language. 1788, Samuel Johnson, page 1. What was the form of the Anglo-Saxons language when about 453 they entered Britain? Remember, that wall that Hadrian had put up, it lasted for almost 350 years. It kept the white barbarians out of Europe, out of Black Britain and Black England. No one knows the answer. They seem to have been a people without learning and without an alphabet. Now, this is 450 AD. Their speech always being cursory and extemporaneous. Most have been artless and without any modes of transitional involution causes. If you don't have transition words like and, conjunctions, with, which, or, whether, you cannot, it's impossible to go from subject to subject, sentence to sentence without any modes of translution or involution clauses, with abruptness and in connection could be seen in their earlier writings. This barbarity seemingly continued during their wars with the Britons. The wars left them no room for studies. This continued to 570 AD, right around 570 AD to 600 AD, until Constantine came from Rome to convert them to Christianity. After 300 years, 900 AD, the Anglo-Saxons learned enough to express themselves like a civilized people. What does that mean? That simply means that the people that are in power, that possess the nuclear weapons, they've only been speaking a known language for a little over 1,000 years. Because remember, from 450 to 900 AD, they could not speak a language. So Augustine came down, taught them how to speak our supposed Latin, since he came from the Vatican. And right around 900 AD, close to 1,000 AD, they started speaking a language. And the moment that these Anglo-Saxons began to speak a language, they plotted on taking over the world. Now check this out. What is this? Let's do an algorithm and go backwards in time. The so-called Negro and the Black nations of the world, we had been speaking for 5,000 years. By the time they started speaking English, or a language that they called the English language, which is a borrowed language that they took from the Black Britons, they've been speaking for 1,000 years, but we've been speaking for 6,000 years. So anyway, they concoct a plan. And the plan is, according to Benjamin Franklin, if you go back and read Benjamin Franklin's essay, 1751, he tells you, in 1751, Benjamin Franklin gives the eyewitness account of the world order in his generation. He said France was swarthy in 1751, all of America, all of Africa. Israel is in Africa. And at that time, the Jews that were in Africa, in Northeast Africa, were swarthy / black people. I can prove that, but that's not what this message is about. Benjamin Franklin, go look this up. It's called The Observations of Mankind, 1751, Benjamin Franklin. France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Sweden was all swarthy nations. What does that mean? They was all swarthy nations. They was all black in 1751. So when the whites came into Europe in 450, the first thing they started doing was making war. This is what they do. They've been doing this everywhere they go. They destroy civilizations. This is all they know. All they know is war. So where am I going with this? I'm going to show you where I'm going with this. So where everybody's familiar with the North Atlantic slave trade, 1619, they go in and they rape and pillage. And they do this under the disguise of paper bulls, one being the dumb diverser that gave them psychologically gave them the right to go in and destroy nations, bring captives back, take their lands. And the idea was to imprison these people, to imprison the so-called Negro for life, but God intervened. But I want to show you the footsteps of this ideology. And I'm going to say it again. The footsteps of this ideology, and that ideology is to always rule the world. It's a dumb ideology. It's not going to happen because when Yahweh comes back, or the one y'all call Jesus, and we call Yeshua Mashiach or Jesus Christ, he's gonna put down all white rulership, and he's gonna rule the planet for 1,000 years. This is a fact. But check this out. In 1884, the Gentiles, or the sons of Japhet, had a conference in Berlin called the Berlin Conference. Even if you're a rookie historian, you should have a concept of what this is. The Berlin Conference in 1884 is when all the white powers of Europe got together and carved up Africa on the map, and they went in and they subjugated the people and brought out the natural resources, the minerals, the animals, the gold, the silver, anything they could get their hands on. So right around, I think, in the 1950s, during the time that the civil rights movement, the civil rights movement sparked a global revolt against white colonialism. Because think about it, the greatest tool that was invented in that particular era was the television set. And when the rest of the world saw Martin Luther King and Abernathy and that generation rise up against white power, Africa began to rise, and they expelled the white colonists. The Koreans expelled the white colonists, and so did the Indians, get rid of the British. So it was a ripple effect. It was a global revolution. But yet, in the history books in North America, the revolution has been called a civil rights movement. No, it was part of a global revolution. You cannot separate us from humanity. 1925, they established the League of Nations, and guess what? Just like in 1884. There were no black nations present at the Berlin Conference. In 1925, there was zero black representation at the League of Nations. I don't know why I'm stuttering today. 1925, same concept, white power, maintain white rulership over the planet. 1945, United Nations was formed. There was only one nation that was allowed to sit at the UN at that time, and it was Ethiopia. And it was with that brother, the lion of the tribe of Judah, what's his name? Halassi. Uh, all the black nations in the world were not permitted to sit at the table. And it wasn't until the 50s and the 60s when the whites got expelled from Africa that the black nations were allowed to sit at the table, the United Nations. So if I say 1950. Black nations have only been sitting at the UN for a little over 75 years. But again, the United Nations had the same ideology that the League of Nations and the Berlin Conference had, and it was white power. You said, what does this have to do with the strike that Israel initiated against the Iranians? You're going to see in a minute. The European Union and NATO. Every nation in the EU is white. These are the footsteps of, like I said previously, the footsteps of an ideology beginning in 18 and beginning in 1619 and extending itself all 400 years into the future to our generation. And then you get NATO. All these European good old boys clubs, and they all got one thing in common. And that is to maintain white rulership over the planet. Now check this out. Right here in the United States, you got the Ku Klux Klan, Democratic Party, Republican Party, the left, the far left, the right, the far right. All these so-called democratic entities outside of the KKK, they're all white though. They all got one thing in common. They want to maintain white rulership. They just have a different opinion on how to initiate and maintain it. One wants to do it through violence, KKK. The other wants to do it through bills and legislation. The other two, Democrats and the Republicans. But they all have one thing in common. They all are in line with NATO and the EU and with this Israeli occupation. They want to maintain what? White power. This is what's going on right now. So what is going on? We cannot allow anybody that's not part of the white establishment to have a nuclear weapon. All of Africa, no nuclear weapons. All of Arabia, no nuclear weapons. All of these nations, they have zero nuclear weapons. Don't y'all see what's going on? It is the maintenance of white power and this ideology of white superiority and supremacy. But they got a problem. They got a problem. And what is the problem? The problem they have is that the Bible talks about a Messiah. You know, I want you to hear this. The Bible talks about a Messiah that is to come. That when this Messiah shows up, now it's the Hebrew Bible that speaks of him. In Hebrew, they call him Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus Christ, translated. And they talk about him coming. I think it's Ezekiel the 38th chapter. It talks about him. Well, the entire book talks about him, the Battle of Armageddon, him subduing the nations of the earth, bringing the nations of the earth under his subjection and authority. It talks about him burning all the nuclear weapons and all the weapons of mass destruction. Anything that could kill could be used to kill a man. It talks about reestablishing the covenant of peace between the man and the beast kingdom. This is what their problem is. Now some of these nations, they understand scripture. So what you see now, what you're seeing now is you're seeing a frantic effort by the white nations to stop the creation from moving forward on the timeline. But there's nothing they could do about it because his ruach is spirit. So I hope you got something out of this brief dissertation today, my little message. But what you're looking at in the Middle East is the white stranglehold on the rest of the nations of the earth, and uh, the only crime that the Iranians committed was progress, the crime of progress. And one last thing for you Bible scholars out there: this is not the end. This is not the end or a signal or a sign that Jesus or Yeshua is about to make his second advent, because the only way this could be possible is Israel would have to be in the land. And the people that are in the land are imposters. They're not Israel, and the nations know this. I want to thank you for your time. Um, if you get some time, make your way over to my bookstore, the negroquestionbookstore.com, or you can go to Amazon. I've got about 14, 15 books out there with dictionaries, and we even got a book that teach you how to speak Hebrew. So God bless you, and see you again.